Well, in his first major action as House Minority Leader, Congressman Kevin McCarthy sides with Senator Mitt Romney and the New York Times in a dispute over how Congressman Steve King was quoted in a phone interview. One America's Neil McCabe has more on the matter from Washington.
Iowa Republican Congressman Steve King was stripped of his committee assignments after a New York Times reporter quoted him defending white supremacy and white nationalism. There is no tape, but House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy sanctioned the conservative even after King told him face-to-face that he was misquoted.
And in that hour and 20 minutes, I didn't get much of an ear. I got the sense very early in the meeting that the decision was made, and he was looking for just to be able to say, we had this conversation. But he pushed back on me hard constantly.
King said he told McCarthy that the reporter, Trip Gabriel, had called him and promised him a positive profile in the New York Times, with the narrative that the congressman from Northwest Iowa was now one of the most influential men in the country because his long-held views on immigration are now the policies of the President of the United States. The congressman said he spoke to the reporter for 56 minutes, and even as the discussion became more abstract, King said he never defended white supremacy and white nationalism, which Gabriel himself brought up, but he did not. Instead, he said, he simply made the point that growing up he learned about Western civilization, which was now considered a racist term.
I was speaking exclusively of Western civilization, not those other topics. Those other topics were fed into the dialogue earlier in the conversation.
Kevin McCarthy has not been the leader of House Republicans for a month yet, but his quick rebuke of King is a signal to other conservatives, he said. Some on Capitol Hill have speculated that McCarthy is making a harsh example of King so that the Republicans could then compare how they treat him with how Democrats accept anti-Semitism or other problems in their caucus. But King said he did not see that at play.
I don't see them with a long-term vision on a strategy that's that complex. I think they're just knee-jerk virtue signalers.
Iowa Republican leaders and supporters of King back home have demanded the paper release the tape, but the Times said there is no recording. Rather, the reporter typed up the interview off his notes, so King is left with just his word.
Kevin McCarthy knows there is no tape. He talked to the New York Times reporter who said he believed he represented it accurately. So Kevin McCarthy is taking the word of the New York Times reporter over me.
Joining McCarthy in the party leadership's rebuke of King was freshman Senator Mitt Romney, who called on King to resign. But in the end, it is up to the voters, King said, and he is feeling better about that now.
Well, of course, our phones have been busy and really intense for a long time now, a number of days. But it shifted from the early calls in the first day to now, it's overwhelmingly supportive of me.
One example of how King has long been a target of the Republican leadership on Capitol Hill is in the days before the midterm election, when it was obvious that the House was in play. The chairman of the National Republican Congressional Committee condemned King and urged voters to elect the Democrat instead. Neil W. McCabe, One America News, Washington.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.